Lovely, thanks, Becca. Okay, so this webinar is scheduled to go on for a couple of hours, which means that we do have time for questions. We're going to have a couple of activities in breakout rooms. Those will not be recorded. So those of you who are kind of keeping your camera off because you don't want to appear on the recording, it's perfectly fine. But can I ask in the breakout rooms that you do put your camera on, because it's always easier, if possible. And I understand that it's not always possible. So, right. So we're here to talk about parental engagement in relation to 50 things. I suspect that the very act of being on this call means that you're almost sold on the idea that research consistently demonstrates that what parents do with their children at home is more impactful to their future achievements, more impactful than lots of different elements, but particularly their social class or their level of education. It has a positive influence on their health and well-being, but I think more than that, engaging in an authentic way with parents is something that I think it's fair to say that we find sometimes that people who go into early years because they are talented, interested and enthusiastic about nurturing and supporting children's attainment sometimes don't find it that easy to engage with parents. So we see 50 things as well as a tool for many professions. We see it as something that sometimes gives a framework to members of staff to support that parental engagement and to involve those parents in their children's learning. Can we have the next slide, please, Becca? Thank you. So what we'd like to do is pretty rapidly put you into breakout rooms so you can all talk about us and say she should dye her hair. We'd like a quick audit. So if we give you only about 10 minutes to think about in your smallish groups about some of the strategies that you currently use in your setting. So not the stuff that you've heard about, that you're thinking about implementing, but what do you do already to engage your parents? And if somebody could volunteer or we could nominate somebody to feed back. We're not going to spend a huge amount of time feeding back, but we think that generally we like to create a learning community within these webinars, and very often we learn as much from each other as we do from the people presenting. So Becca, you're in charge of breakout rooms again.
Yeah.
Did you hear the enthusiasm with which?
It's because I'm concentrating, trying to remember how to do it. Okay. You should automatically get sent there now.
We'll give you a warning before we bring you back about a minute before. Becca, it's actually invited me, so I'm going to say not now.
Yeah, okay.
And I think you're going to have to pause the recording. I don't think I can do that. Lovely, thank you. Dawn, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Cooking Bear.
So they had a cooking bear. So they did cooking activities in the setting with the cooking bear, and then the cooking bear got sent home to do some cooking activities at home, and they linked that into healthy eating and anything that they could within 50 things. We had Denise, who also had a reading bear. So they did the reading bear, and then obviously that bear then went home with the parents to read a designated book, and that was then linked into the 50 things wherever they possibly could.
Yeah.
We had Donna, who said that they'd got all of the staff had actually got the 50 Things app that had been downloaded to all of the staff's iPads. So when they were feeding back at the end of the day, or when they were speaking to parents and sharing things with parents, they could literally show them on the app in the room. And we had a discussion about the fact that that app could have the language thing on that they can change the language, which a
Oh,
few of them
yes. Yeah.
didn't know that it could do that. So that they had a top tip there that they could change the language on it. Donna, I think it was, also said that they had tapestry, and what they did is, because that some of the parents, particularly ones who had got EAL, found the app a little bit overwhelming. What they did is they just selected a couple of age appropriate activities, and then they shared that on their tapestry for parents to then do at home. They shared it within their newsletters for parents. They shared the 50 Things recommended books at their lending libraries. And also, when children first registered at the nursery, a leaflet was also given regarding the 50 Things and the activities and what that was all about. I think that's everything. Ladies, have I missed anything at all? Donna, Denise, Michelle, is there anything I've missed?
No, I think that's it.
Excellent. Some really nice ideas there. Thank you very much to that first group. Group 2, Becca, who was in that one?
So group 2, I've got Abby, Jen, Louisa and Scarlett, R. Myers, Sasha and Sarah Clark.
Forgot to nominated somebody who's going to feed back.
Well volunteered, Sarah.
Did Sarah know that she's
I don't mind.
Thank you, Sarah.
We weren't organised enough to pick anybody up. Apologies. So we talked a lot about, we've got kind of quite a lot of different, we didn't have very many settings in our group, so we kind of talked about other things as well. So we talked about role modelling with regards to, I can't remember everybody's name, sorry, but one of us worked in family hubs, so we talked about stay and play sessions and role modelling and making sure, with regards to those 50 things, one of the great things about it is that no cost and low cost for those families, so they can go away, they can do those activities. We talked about books that we can add in that match with those 50 things activities. One of the settings that was in our group talked about how it's advertised and how that communication through the app. We talked about how, if anybody else wants to jump in my group as well, please do. I'm not as organised as Dawn, who's probably written everything down that happened in her group. Just shows how differently we all work, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
So just for those of you that don't know, Dawn and Sarah work together.
Yeah. Dawn's very organised. I'm not organised, but I'm not as organised. Yeah, and so then we talked about as well modelling those 50 things activities in the setting, which then enables those children to go home. And when parents then go to do those activities, those children have got some idea, about how to build a den or just some of those lovely activities, so they can kind of almost take charge and lead the way with their families and with their parents as well, because some parents aren't that confident. And we know that with some of the activities. So if we've done them at nursery, then hopefully that helps that child lead that with their parents as well. So yeah, I think is that okay?
That's lovely. That's great. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much for that, Sarah, and the rest of group 2. Group 3.
Okay, so I've got C. Armitage, which I think is Claire, Caroline, Julia, Kerry, Meltaven, which I think is Emma, and Reneka. We have
we didn't really nominate anybody, but I'm happy to do it.
But Julie, you can't bear the silence for longer than anybody else.
No, that's right. I'm sorry I didn't catch everybody's name, so I'm going to go through what we talked about, and hopefully I've remembered everybody. Again, we didn't have everybody working in settings as such, because we had somebody working in a toddler hub already, family hub as well, so parents were already very engaged and coming into the sessions. But even amongst that, we came up with lots of different things that are happening. in engaging parents. So things that
Julia,
have been
can I just
mentioned.
pause you a moment? There's some interference. I don't know if there's a mic you can wiggle somewhere, but
Is it not very clear? It's probably my Wi-Fi. I'm going to turn my light off. That might be making a buzzing noise. Is that any better?
no, it's just when you're speaking, it's like it's a mic. But yeah, don't worry, carry on.
Maybe I need
can
to
hear
shut
you
up and
over it,
somebody
Julia.
else talk. Would anybody else like to do it?
Evidently not, Julia.
You've got to hear my horrible sound, screeching sound. So things that came up for us were things like lovely book bags and books going out for parents to share with their children, homework bags. Topics that were happening in the setting were shared with parents through the newsletter, with different activities that they can do at home, which links really well with 50 Things.
Yeah.
We talked about stay and play sessions. Some are very popular. So I think, was it Claire? Is it Claire Armitage? She said that she had really good attendance with her stay and play sessions, over 50%. And yet other people were finding it harder to engage parents. So as the lady said at the beginning, Dawn, I think it can be tricky. What works for some parents doesn't work for others. We talked about the Making It Real project, so raising early achievement in literacy, which is very much based around home visiting and visiting parents in the home and playing activities with their children together, which again is a lovely idea, and having literacy events where parents are invited in to the setting to do lots of low cost, no cost activities together. And then we had a discussion around inviting dads into the setting. So I think Claire mentioned they do a Saturday session for parents. And again, I don't know what the attendance was like, but that got us talking then about sessions in Peterborough. They're called Saturdads. So dads are invited and they do lots of lovely activities with their children, you know, from playing football to building models, den building, etc. And then, was it Emma? I apologise if I got the name wrong. One of the ladies said that she, as a child, had gone to some Saturday sessions with her dad and can remember them really well. So that shows how valuable they were. I can't remember what you called it, but there was a lovely app that went alongside that called Dad Pad, and it was called an essential guide for new dads, which sounded like a lovely app. I don't know if it's still around now.
Dawn's not.
Again,
She's obviously familiar with it, Julia. So
yes, yeah, and linking again with 50 Things would be fab. So we had really good discussions around, you know, what's happening already.
yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. Not just to you, Julia, but to the rest of the group. Thank you all. Group 4.
So group 4 was Christina, Elaine, Linktown Nursery, Linda, and then I've got a C, I feel like I'm at the opticians. Is it CVVIN 748 or CWIN 748? And Samsung SMA515F.
Hello, I think I was kind of nominated to talk, so I was in for most of it, and then I'm at school, so I was called out, and then I kind of came back in again. So we were joined with, there was a couple, I don't think everyone had chance to share what they were doing, but I was talking to someone that works at a family hub and another that works with not based in schools. So they were talking about they do a lot within the community. So they go into the libraries, they obviously work in the hubs, they go into schools, they do all sorts of things like stay and plays, one-stop shops, open days, coffee mornings, a lot around early help, and about removing the stigma around early help and kind of helping parents to access early help and actually understand what it is and that it's, and trying to get as it suggests, it's getting there in there early, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then, to be honest, one of them was from our local hub, so I then was straight in with kind of seeing how they can support us as a school. So yeah, I'm sorry, we did digress a little bit, but it helped me massively. So that was great. So thank you, Christina, for that. As a school, we use Dojo quite a lot as a method of communication with our parents. So it's an app that across the school, from nursery right through to year 6, our parents access Dojo, and we started it last year, and it's really become more popular as time's gone through. The large majority of our parents, I think because it's on a mobile phone, the large majority of our parents are signed up to that. So
Really
we
good.
send out regular communication through that. Class teachers, whole school stories, we kind of share everything that way, and just trying to get our parents in as much as possible. So we had stay and play before they started either our nursery or our reception. So the parents came in with the children initially, and then kind of we did a bit of to support their transition. We did some with where the parents stayed for a bit and then left. So just trying to get them in as much as possible, really. Lots of communication. So the staff team, so I'm deputy, I'm not based in, I'm the early years lead, but not a teacher in there. But just getting the parents in as much as possible, sharing photos on Dojo, inviting them in. Yeah, so it's just really, we looked at parent events. Sorry, I've got my reception teacher with me just for a minute. She stepped in. I was like, "Stay, please." So yeah, you know what it's like. Step into someone's office and you don't leave. So yeah, the 50 things to do is something that I'd heard about and done a little bit of research, but last year we just weren't in a place to do that, because obviously we were starting with Dojo and we just didn't want to bombard our parents too much. But I've had a little look at it, and I certainly think it's something we can do now we're in that place.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you very much, Elaine, and the rest of Group 4 for those conversations. Group 5.
I've just realised there were 4 groups. I think.
No, there's our group.
Oh wait, oh yeah, sorry. It's just that Andrew's name was there was. Yeah. So we've got Joanna, Mandy, Philippa, and Suzanne.
So we said that although we do give things out to parents, it's been quite challenging, particularly after COVID. Parents aren't really engaging like they were. As a setting, we've always promoted 50 things, but this September we've gone forward with it. We've sent it out to all parents again, and we're asking for things like photographs back if they've done it. But I was saying that in our setting, through our planning, we used to send them home homework every week, which was just a nice little activity that it could, which linked into what their children had learnt last week. But it just tailed off. It just got to the point where we were getting no feedback, nothing off parents. So that's why we've changed it. So there will be an activity of the week that we're going to send out to parents in the 3 different age groups that we've got. They'll all be slightly different. They'll be either with the topic that they're doing or the story that they're looking at. But we just said parent engagement for a lot of us has been quite difficult. And we're just finding parents quite difficult. They're parenting, they're not parenting as such. So we're struggling with trying to get them on board with things because they don't think their children have to go to bed at certain times at night, and they, the children are ruling the roost a little bit.
I think there's been lots of conversation post-COVID about the impact of COVID on children. I think we have to hold in mind is that COVID had a massive impact on parents as well.
Yeah, definitely.
It was a real challenge for lots of us. So
yeah, we do. Obviously, listening to everybody, you remember what we do. We do a bear that we send home for our preschoolers, and we ask parents to do activities with it and send us photos. That went out with our preschoolers last year. One lady, they'd sent out a lot of things during the summer, and they'd got a lot more. They're on a family app, and they'd got a lot of things back. So it's just how to keep that ball rolling.
I think it is that ball rolling, and I think you mentioned that before COVID you'd got pretty good relationships with parents and families, and it's just starting the ball rolling again and building on it, I guess. We
said we would try and introduce a stay and play around these 50 things to do, one every term. So we have told our parents that's what they will be doing, you know, they'll be invited to. So I think there's a lot of things that we are doing. We're trying to engage parents as much, but they are busy. They're working parents in our setting.
Yeah.
Generally, not everybody, but generally they're working parents.
Yeah.
And they just don't have the time necessarily, or I don't know.
I think it's hard very often. And I think sometimes, I mean, I'm thinking about, I suspect that all parents have heard the message about reading with their children and how useful that is, but it's whether you prioritise it this week or whether you know that you're going to do it and it's something that you're going to do another day. It's a little bit like living near to the seaside, and we're definitely going to go to the beach soon. But if it's there and easy, it's sometimes not something that you're going to...
We do a library book. So they have library books every week, and parents are pretty good actually with bringing their library books. So they do seem to like sharing stories.
Yeah.
But that is an easy thing to do, isn't it, before bedtime, whereas an activity that you've planned or suggesting, you think they've got to go out their way. Sometimes it's a bit of a, oh, okay, maybe a bit more of a challenge. So yeah, that's why I've come onto here to have some ideas.
Excellent.
Brilliant.
Okay. Those are really interesting contributions, and I thank each of those groups for that. So, and I know a lot of you have talked about already utilising 50 things to do, but for those who are not very familiar with it, I'll give some context. So the conception of 50 things, we're based in a maintained nursery school in an area of some deprivation in Bradford, and we've got a history really of working in a respectful way with parents, and that's based on the belief that every parent wants better for their children. Now, some families' idea of better doesn't necessarily chime with ours, but it is that fundamental belief that they want better. And we thought that parents don't always know what sort of activities they might do that will make a massive difference. Because I think, as 50 Things demonstrates, it seems really quite simplistic when it's become that habitual. And I think parents always think it's going to be much more complicated. So we started off and developed almost a bucket list. Tick a box, tick a list, just to let our parents know what sort of things we felt would be really useful if they could do. Those activities support all aspects of child development from 20 weeks post-conception right the way through to 5 years old. But we also have a culture and a history within the school of accepting that for some parents, not all, but for some, an open door policy isn't enough, that for some, it's really quite hard for them to get into school. Depending on their own experience of going into school, that might feel a barrier. Maybe for some dads, they feel that that's a female-dominated environment and it's not somewhere that they necessarily feel comfortable. So consequently, at the maintained nursery school, we've worked really hard, and we've got a significant percentage of our staff are male staff. So trying to shift some of those barriers to parental engagement and having a culture of, if they can't come in, then we'll go out. And we recognised that if we thought about where are parents at the moment, many of them were on their phones. So we worked in partnership with an app developer to develop an app to have that further reach. It is free at the point of access to families, professionals, anybody who wants to use it. And it was certainly developed with the idea that this is something that can be a universal offer and therefore potentially less threatening than something that is a targeted parenting intervention. We had a history of working as a children's centre with a team of family support workers who talked about some of the families that maybe we most wanted to work with and their reluctance for doing something because they felt that by being selected to be worked with, that was an accusation criticising their parenting. So we very deliberately promote 50 Things as a universal offer. It's not bought in for certain families. It is something that parents and extended families can use, and it's non-judgmental. It's starting from where the parent is and saying quite clearly whatever it is that you do is valuable and useful. But if you want to build on that, we can help you with ideas and inspiration. The organisation is not for profit. Everything that we make from the sale of 50 Things to our commissioning partners is reinvested. The website, the app, resources, marketing resources, staffing even in the central team has grown quite significantly over the past 2 or 3 years. We've recently extended to an app offer of 50 Things ages 5 to 11, and that was with money that was to promote aspiration and active lifestyle and trying out a range of activities. So it's now an offer that goes birth to 11. Becca? Thank you. So what does it look like? There's a smartphone app, which is available on both Android and iPhone. There's a website, and one of the key features of the website is that there is a translate feature. So any of you who are working with families who perhaps have English as an additional language, if those parents are literate in their home language, then not the app, but on the website, they can have all the content translated into the language that they're more comfortable with. I'm going to talk about just a couple of certainly one of the features of the smartphone app that it was mentioned already. Dawn, what was it that you said that people didn't know about?
It was translation, I think, but like
that was it, translation.
It's the website, not the app.
But one of the other things about sharing photos is that there is an opportunity to make memories. So to take a photograph with a smartphone of their children doing this particular activity and store it on their phone, but under the heading of each of those activities. So sometimes if you're saying to parents, send photos in, if you've promoted that as a making memory section, so you're going to do that and save those photographs of your child or your family doing these activities over the years, then those are really easy ones to send into school.
Can I just add onto that, Andrea? So at the moment, if you add a memory and you go to share, you can share it on social media, you can share it on WhatsApp. I think there is a way to share via email as well. But this is hot off the press news. Just this week, I have reached out to Tapestry and Family, and Dojo may be on that list as well, to have a conversation about being able to share directly from our app to their app. So it will be a photograph, and when you share it on if you want to try it, if you've got it downloaded, if you go to share it on WhatsApp or social media, you get the photograph that you've stored and you get an image that says, I've just played with squidgy sand, or I've just tried baking, with the logo. So we are hoping to have conversations and progress working with Tapestry, Family and potentially Dojo, so that it can be shared directly from one app to another.
Yeah, wonderful. The other thing to note, and it's worth talking to your parents at any events or in newsletters, there's been some anxiety in the past, and don't forget we've been going for 6 years now, so this might have diminished as we go on, but sometimes parents are a bit reluctant and say, well, I don't particularly want to upload photographs where other people can look at them. All that anxiety about sharing photographs more publicly. Neither the local project team, the national central project team, or the app developer can access any of those photographs. They're not loaded up to the app because the app isn't a sign-in app. They are still stored on the device on which they were taken, and the choice to share either on social media or with friends and family via those various opportunities that Becca's just mentioned is entirely left at the hands of the person with the device. They're not publicly shared. The other thing to mention is that if they change devices, they must save the photos separately because they won't transfer with the app because it's not a sign-in app.
Just again, a little bit of hot off the press news. We are in conversation with the app developer to have the possibility of being able to download the images slash apps activities that you've done, so that you can record it if you move from one device to another, because that has been raised as a bit of a sad point for some parents who move from one phone to another and they'd completed 49 of the 50 things, and they have to start again. So our app developers are currently looking at that, and we have a meeting with them again next week.
Lovely, thank you for that, Becca. And those are really good examples of that constant reinvestment into the project and the offer. The print resources that are available localised are card packs. I don't know if you've got one to hand, Becca. They're postcard size, they're on a ring. They're not translated, but they've got less language on them. They're also appropriate, there we are, to use in rooms or classrooms where Wi-Fi enabled devices or personal devices are not appropriate. They are incredibly popular. They've been purchased in some of our project areas with pupil premium money for those families who do not have IT access, digital poverty. And usually the schools or settings in receipt of pupil premium are very aware of which families that's likely to be a challenge for.
Again, just to flag up that they are not available in every locality. We recommend that you get in touch with your the organisation that hosts you locally. So if there's anyone from Peterborough, that is Julia that's on the call, or anyone from Warwickshire, that is Dawn and Sarah, and anyone from Cambridge, that is Philippa. But if you go onto your local website, there is an opportunity there where you can contact your team and see if card packs are available in your area. And another piece of development news, we have just recently made the design process easier for local authorities to be able to localise their card pack. So, yeah.
So a range of different resources that are available in different project areas include posters, books, bookmarks, stickers. I know in Cambridgeshire they've done some work around posters that are linked to healthy outcomes due to a partnership with Public Health in Cambridgeshire. So it's worth talking to the project lead in your local area. And as Becca said, those contact details will be available on the local websites. Thanks, Becca. Okay, so we can have a look at the website if this link works.
Has it worked? Yeah. I can
can't
see it.
it
Can you
yet.
guys?
Is it on another screen? Do you need to stop sharing and go to the other screen?
Yeah, maybe.
Hello, Michelle, Amanda and Caroline, new faces that I haven't seen in my narrow bit. There we go. So 50 Things Bradford. As I say, there are 22 localised projects from Jersey in the south up to Fife in Scotland. Not all of them have ages 5 to 11. We're currently trialling in Wakefield, East Sussex, Oxfordshire and Bradford. But if you wanted to look at 5 to 11, it's available on those 4 sites. If we can go to, shall we show the translate feature? Because I think that's quite useful. You can see that top right, it's currently in English.
I will show the translate, Andrea, but before I show the translate, because sometimes I struggle to untranslate it on this computer, and I haven't got my mouse plugged in. So before I translate it, I'll just sort of really briefly show you the activities. So it's the same activities that are on the app. And when you click onto an activity, there are drop-down boxes that tell you a little bit more. So how to do it, what you will need, where and when and why. there is a little bit about children with special educational needs on each of the activities and how it could be adapted. There is an element of keywords. This is not, you know, a list of every word that should be said in relation to this activity. It's just a prompt that there are, you know, words that can be threaded into conversations. If I just go to the local links as well. So if you go onto your local links, I won't click on it because it will take me out of here. But those are links for Bradford. You will find your local links in your area. And resources may also be localized in your area. And if I just close this one and look at a different activity, which one shall we go for? I think shout and shush. Oh no, not shout and shush. I'm just looking in some of the activities. There will be localization of where you can do things. Can you think of one on the top of your head, Andrea?
Sharing books.
Yeah.
Local links there.
Yeah. So yeah, so you've got story and rhyme times at Bradford Libraries, and the libraries for the under fives, the Better Start Imagination Library, and Bradford Stories, which is an organisation within charity that works with families to promote reading. So yeah, so that you will find localization within the project as well. And if I just go back up to the top, the other thing that you will find are, oh, sorry, I've got the Zoom toolbar right over where I need to work. Okay, so here's a list of local activities happening in Bradford. So we've got rhyme times at Bradford Libraries. We've got mums, bumps and babies at nature and wellbeing sessions. And I mean, this says the 3rd of January, but this isn't ongoing. If you then read the blue, it's 3rd of January through to 31st of December. So there are ongoing activities, and we update that on a regular basis, and your local area will do the same when they have the capacity. Some areas have more capacity than others to add these events. But again, if you work with the people that are holding it in your area, you can ask them to share your events on those spaces as well. We have some printable resources on here. So we are going to be redesigning these slightly because they're very ink heavy, we've realised, but there are downloadable certificates to celebrate when a child has done 10, 20, 30, 40 or 50. There are stamp cards which you can download and print those off, and you know, we say stamp cards. If you don't want to use a stamp, you can just get children to use a crayon or a pen and tick off when they've done them. So they've been quite popular in a lot of local areas. Again, I'm not going, oh sorry, on the about bit is where you will find who your local people are that are the people to get in touch with. I'm not going to click on here, but on here at the top, we've got a how to do it, which opens a new page with a short little video of how to do 50 things, which is you know, it's really brief and shows it really clearly, so you can share that video with your parents as well. So I will now try and change the language. So you can see, if anybody can read Afrikaans, you can see that it's all changed to Afrikaans. All the activities have changed, and all the drop-down boxes and everything that is in there has changed as well. So that is
really... You can go up to that picture. This is Mari. I'll just introduce Mari. Mari's also the little girl who's illustrating shout and shh in the tunnel. it is important to us and replicated in the majority of projects where the images that are used on both the app and the website replicate the community because they're local children. You'll also see that local buildings and landmarks are seen because we know that by localizing this project, the communities that are using it feel that it is absolutely relevant and pertinent to them. So for those of you working in a setting, if you get a photograph from families and you just think that illustrates that beautifully, it's wonderful. It's always worth talking to your local project if the parents are happy with it and seeing if they would like to use that image, because we're certainly always very keen to make sure that we've got a bank of images that we can use on promotion as well as the app and the website.
So just to give you an example here, I've got Warwickshire's. As you will note, it is still translated, and unless I've got my mouse, I can't do it. But you will see the photographs there are different to the ones that we have here, and you'll see that there's a local bus there. Which am I right in remembering, Dawn, that you actually had to stand in the middle of the roundabout to get that photograph?
Yes, I did during COVID as well. I think it actually does say on the front of that bus something about COVID to prove that it was actually taken. Yeah, out in the middle of a roundabout in the Neaton Town Centre, taking photographs. And 80% of our children on there are Warwickshire children, and that also was obtained during COVID. So yeah, that was a slight big task to be done.
Yeah, it is.
You know, and that's
well worthwhile.
That's a whole other story, really. But you know, it's really important that that localization is there because it helps. You know, there is evidence that shows that parents engage more with things that where they can see themselves and their community reflected in it. Okay, so I shall go back to sharing the presentation. I think it might take me right back to the beginning. Yeah, so just bear with me a moment.
Okay, so we know that in terms of engaging parents, that research tells us that working in this way supports children's outcomes. We know, although I would always advocate that we don't do things just for Ofsted, but we know that Ofsted expects that you will demonstrate, if you're in a setting, in a school, how you work with parents. We also know that despite it not being allowed, we do actually get a shout out for 50 things on various outstanding Ofsted reports.
Yeah, there's a few examples later on in the presentation.
Yeah. But what we try and demonstrate is that 50 Things gives you a tangible framework illustrating perhaps what you already do in this area of your work. So there's very little of it, certainly in the activities that you'd think, oh, that's new and inspiring. What it does do is say to parents that these are worthwhile, even if they're basic activities to undertake with their children. So you engage parents, not just because you know that it's good for the children, but if you're in the private sector, they're your customers. If you're in the school sector and the private sector, they should be your partners in that endeavour to get the best outcomes for children. It's about developing trusting relationships between the staff in a setting and the parents who use them, so they feel comfortable, more able to have a conversation. You're engaging parents with your values regarding the childcare and education, so you're communicating really effectively the sorts of activities that you think have got fundamental value, and you're engaging parents in their children's learning. So it's a multifaceted tool that will support each of those aspirations. Thank you, Becca.
You want me to pick this up for a bit?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, give you a break. So the next couple of slides are just kind of looking at some of the impact that feedback that we've had from early years settings. And this was a bit of small scale research that we did across East Sussex, Peterborough, and Wakefield. And 73% of settings that are using 50 things to do before you're 5 regularly in their practice has stated that it's improved relationships with parents. So that is fantastic. You know, we talked earlier in this presentation about how, you know, we're still recovering from, you know, the impact of COVID in terms of us engaging with our parents. So I won't read them out. I'll leave them up there on the screen for a moment for you to just have a quick read through, but those are the comments that people have told us. You know, I think, you know, I mean, they're all really important, but the fact, you know, that the statement there that they feel more included in their children's learning, you know, that's just really great to hear. And then around the home learning environment, 75% of those settings are saying that parents have engaged with more home learning activities since having 50 things to do in their setting. And they know that because parents have sent the pictures in, which is what we've talked about. And you know, they've been sharing with the setting what they've been doing. Again, I'll just leave that up there for a moment for you to have a read through. I'm really conscious of time, and I think we've kind of covered this element here of localizing the offer. You will get these slides so you can have it as a reminder, but I think we've talked about the localization, so I shall skip this. So yeah, how can we engage parents better? I'm just trying to think, is this where we're going to a breakout, Andrea, or is that the next?
Not just yet.
Not just yet, okay. So, you know, we want to have an offer that is there for you, and it's no cost to your business. So 50 things to do before you're 5, if it's available in your area, which is for the majority of you here tonight, it is no cost to your organisation or your families to use. It's there. So it's fantastic. It enables you to work with your parents as a partner to do that experiential learning at home. It's demonstrating a commitment to the fact that you are valuing the family by wanting to support their learning at home and working with them. It enables you to share your aims, you know, your ethos in possibly a more accessible format. And it enables parents to become knowledgeable in how they can support their child's learning without it being judgmental. You know, we are talking about 50 really fun things, playful things to do at home. We're not sort of saying, you know, you need to do more things with your child, you need to improve your parenting. It's a universal offer for everyone, and they can comfortably become more knowledgeable in how they can support their child's learning. So here's the breakout room. So going back into your breakout rooms, if you could just again have 10 minutes to discuss, and I think some of you did this a little bit in the last one, but just in a bit more detail to discuss the barriers that you've experienced when engaging with parents and trying to identify some of those solutions. And if possible, nominate somebody to feedback, please. We will see you in 10 minutes.
I think they might be going into different rooms, Becca.
I did say recreate, but yeah, they are different ones. But...
Do you want to pause the recording again?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're all back. So we've had a couple of people who've had to apologise and go back into the meeting. So group 1.
I think that might be us. I was with different ladies, but I think I'm still group 1.
Okay.
Shall I just go for it anyway, Andrea?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've got Abby. Oh, I don't know where you ended up, Dawn. Were you with Andrea?
Ooh.
No.
No, I was
No.
somewhere different.
Oh.
So maybe
Let's
I
go
was
for group 1.
1.
Who was in group 1, Becca?
Okay. Some people didn't end up in the.
And now Becca's frozen, which is,
She has.
so we didn't hear any of those names, Becca, because she froze.
Ooh.
Dawn, oh no.
Shall we just? Oh,
Yeah, Dawn, can we go with your group, please?
shall we just go? Shall we just go
Yeah.
for Andrea? We'll just go.
Yeah.
Okay. So barriers that in my group mentioned was that it's particularly hard to engage working parents. So if they're going to be putting on any additional events like stay and plays and things like that, it's really hard to engage those working parents who are working full time. They also said that they've definitely seen a rise in numbers regarding children with EAL, and then that actually proves quite difficult to engage those particular families as well. We mentioned about areas of deprivation. So depending on where settings are and what areas of deprivation they're working in, that can prove quite challenging because just attendance alone and getting the actual children to the setting alone is a big challenge. Never mind trying to get parents to kind of engage in other things. We mentioned about complex family setups, and that actually can be quite challenging with the complex families that we've got. Mental health of parents, that is on the increase as well, and therefore trying to get parents just to function on a normal daily basis can be quite challenging because of their mental health, and again, so therefore trying to get them to go above and beyond and do something additional is difficult. We said the increase regarding children with SEND and the complex nature of what that looked like since COVID also makes it difficult to engage parents, and also the complex SEND needs is also what's impacting on parents' mental health. And we also said that sometimes it's not a one size fits all, and we may have find something that is a quick win with the parents, but actually due to the cohorts that change, what actually might have worked with one cohort of children and families might not necessarily then work with the new cohort that then starts in September.
Yeah.
So that was our barriers.
Yeah. Yeah. Never ever one size fits all.
No.
Never has been, but I think it is becoming more complex. Did you identify any solutions to those barriers, Dawn?
No, we didn't. I mean, we did have a little chat about the fact that the app has the different languages, and that that could be something that could be used. But no, we just had a really good chat about parents and mental health and SEND.
I'm guessing that if you're struggling to communicate with parents who have English as an additional language, it might be worth considering if within your setting or your nursery or your family hub, you have one of the screens that's on a roll, that it's worth putting up one of the more popular community languages that you've got and actually put the 50 Things website up in that home language, just to kind of demonstrate almost that that's there. I think with parents who have got other things that are uppermost, I think it's important not to exclude, but to recognise that we're not engaging just yet, that we might in the future.
Yeah.
You don't ever close the door on it, but recognising that it's challenging.
One point that one lady meant, and I can't remember who mentioned it actually, that when it was a really valid point, that for those families that may be actually in coming from domestic violence kind of situations and setups at home, that actually finding a safe place to do the things on the app, or a safe place to be with the children can also prove quite difficult too.
Yeah. And I think working in areas of deprivation as well, if you're worried about putting food on the table, you're not necessarily going to be overly concerned about play activities and those sort of things. So can I ask everybody who's not talking if they could mute? I can't actually see whose family we're listening into at the moment, but just so you don't embarrass the rest of your family. Okay. So second group, does anybody who's been asked to feedback, are they happy to step up now? Come on, Julia, we know you can't stand the silence for very long.
Sorry, I wasn't sure which group I was in. I didn't catch it at the beginning, so I'm in group two. Well, I'm happy to do it if nobody else wants to. We talked, well, very similar to the first group actually. We also talked about other apps and information that are available to parents, what makes 50 Things stand out really. So we talked about the fact that it's very locally based. There are activities that are very, very local, as well as the events page, which is great for advertising local things for parents to do. We talked about the fact that parents are just very, very busy. It's not that they don't want to do these things with their children or try different activities. They're just very, very busy, and they've got lots of other things on their mind. So like the first group was saying, you know, if there's mental health issues or financial issues, or they're about to lose their house, or partner's just left them, it's not always a top priority. So it's just thinking about all the other things that are going on in parents' lives. We talked about I think it was Ranika from Coventry, about the location of her family hub. That can sometimes put parents off because they feel, because it's based in the school, that some parents may have that, you know, based on their own education and what happened to them, they may be reluctant to come into schools and come into the school environment, and to see that the family hub is, you know, a separate entity, and that can impact the fact that, you know, the information they want to share and the fact that they want to promote 50 Things. And we talked about the fact that it is a free app, how clearly we sort of promote that message, because as we know, whenever we download an app, we're often notified that there are in-app purchases or a financial cost to it. But, you know, being perhaps clearer that it is a free app and that these are low cost, no cost activities. I hope I've covered everything. I don't know if my group think I've missed anything.
Anybody need to add to that? I think it might be relevant to share a couple of things that we talked about in our group at this point, because one of the first things to come up that Linda mentioned is that parents say we've got enough to do already, and I talked about the way that I talk to professionals about the possibility of buying in 50 Things, and they kind of, oh, we're just swamped with work. But to present it not as something else to do, but as something that will support what you're doing already. So I think you can say to families, rather than saying this is something else that we want you to do, it's, if you're looking for a cheap way to keep your children happy and busy and occupied, have you looked at this? So rather than this is something else to do, it might be that you could present 50 Things as a solution to a challenge. It might not work. And I think, I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Sasha who said, I don't know whether it was, but somebody had a 50 Things event, so laid out some of those activities for the children and the parents to have a go at it, and said that went down very well. And sometimes I think illustrating and sharing what 50 Things looks like is really useful, really helpful. Okay, that's lovely. Julia, thank you for that. Is there anybody else from one of the other groups? I think we might have lost Becca, so I'm not sure. Who wants to fess up that their group hasn't fed back yet? And
We
was
haven't.
happy to do
We
so.
haven't fed back yet in our
Michelle,
group.
thank
We were
you.
group 5. So some of our barriers. Mandy, who was in the group, she's a childminder, and she has a parent who's dyslexic. So she says that's difficult to relay things. So she was saying she was thinking about a strategy that she could use because she wants to use 50 things, whether it would have to be more verbally rather than her having to read on the app or on the.
Can I address that
Yeah.
now? Just because before we got the translate feature on, I think I'm right in saying, but I'm not an IT expert, but I think every smart device has accessibility features.
Right.
And one of those is that you can set it up to read the screen.
Okay.
So if you go into accessibility and each device is different, so we haven't been able to develop this is how you do it. But if you go into accessibility, you're looking for read screen, and it will read out at a speed that you want it to read out, whatever it is that's on your screen. So that's worth sharing. Yeah.
I am here, Andrea. It's Becca. My Wi-Fi is struggling, so I turn my camera off.
Okay.
But yeah, I have tried those accessibilities on the app on my phone, and it does work. I can't remember which one it was, but yeah, it does read it out. So.
Yeah. So sorry to interrupt, Michelle.
Okay, yeah, and then the other ones were very similar to what the other groups have said, really. Working parents, very busy, time constraints, and often it's we have a lot more grandparents now picking up.
Yeah.
Than we have done previously. So sometimes maybe some information doesn't always get relayed, or sometimes between parents, between mums and dads, if their parents are separated, then is the information going between each parent?
Always a challenge, Michelle. Always a challenge.
So that's tricky. What else do we say? Often parents can be on their phone. We're trying phones at the gate, things like that, and because we're finding that sometimes more dads will pick up now and they're working from home and they think they're carrying on working on their phones at the gate. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're not putting their phones down to greet their children, so that's a tricky one. And then all the other things that people said, EAL, send. So, but the solution that we did like the idea of obviously the 50 things because it's non-judgmental, so parents won't feel as if it's just a fun thing to do. It's not about a target or an aim or
Yeah.
So I think that was everything. Anybody else in my group? It was mainly that parents' lives just seem busier than they ever have before.
Yeah, I know how they feel. I will just mention that in some of the small scale research that we've done, grandparents really like 50 things because it's more likely to be the sort of activities that maybe they're familiar with, but also that it's likely to be perhaps 30 years since they were looking after their own children and they need a bit of a reminder. You know, it's that, why don't you try that? So we're certainly talking about thinking about our images more carefully and almost letting on that it is for grandparents too and really useful. Thank you very much for that. I think we've still got another group. Does anybody want to fess up?
Yeah, I can't remember which group we're in, but our barriers were very similar to the other groups, working commitments, language barriers. We also talked about past experiences of parents for their education, like in schools, and also of dealing with professionals in general. It's been quite negative. They're hesitant and sort of not forthcoming, and also their own like confidence and skill set. So we had I can't remember who it was. They talked about a parent who can't read or write, so she gets like really upset if she's missed information or whatever. So they're having to work really hard to make sure that she's not excluded from anything. Also like the wording used, so making it like really simple, so it's not scary and it doesn't sound like, oh, I'm not going to be good at that, I'm not even going to bother. Having it simple and easy to understand. again, parents are not on using their phone, so they're not sort of interacting with the children. They're just glued to the screen, which then again makes it trickier for them to be on board with the setting and to be interacting with the setting as well. We did also say that somebody found it was like the same parents who were attending like the same plays or other things. So it's quite hard to get new parents on board. And that building relationships with parents does help for them to see you as a person, not a professional. You're a human being, and you're very friendly rather than just this scary
Absolutely. But I think if parents feel criticised, even though it's the feeling rather than the intention, you do get, if you've got a lanyard on, I don't want to play out with you at all. You know, it's that sort of an attitude. I think that's where the universal offer really comes in. So certainly for professionals who are working with other professionals, tell your health visitors about it. Tell your library services about it. Tell your stay and play people, early years alliance people, because I think the more times parents are told about 50 things by maybe in arenas where they don't feel threatened, that was part of it being the universal offer. This is not something that's aimed at you because we're concerned about you or judgmental of you. This is something that's a resource and it's your entitlement rather than. So, you know, hopefully that persistence with that sort of an attitude might pay off. But yeah, understanding all of those challenges, absolutely. I think we've covered possible solutions.
Andrea, can I just share? We did share it in the group, and it's quite a simple idea, but I feel that it's working for us in our school at the minute.
Okay.
We're using, so I was the one that mentioned about it's the same parents all the time that are literally attending. I mean, I'm HLTA, so and I run family learning in school as well.
Right. Yeah.
So it's literally the same parents that attend. I might have one or two different every time. So what we've tried to do this year, starting new in September, is we've put it out there to try and get up a volunteers group. I've already had quite a lot of interest, which is very hopeful. But what we're trying to do is deliver the message through those parents and families that have already attended. Because this is how parents are going, oh, well, if she likes it, they're probably saying exactly the same thing as what my letter reads that they've had in their hand, but the approach is different from parents that have already attended.
Amanda, it's huge.
Absolutely.
So if a head teacher is talking to you and telling you something, and then you told the same thing by an HLTA who gets where you're coming from, you take notice of people who you believe in, who've got some authenticity. So in Bradford, we have enthusiasts who are largely, not exclusively, but largely parents of young children. Because if I go out, I can tell you from a theoretical perspective all about 2-year-olds, and I can talk with authority. But a mother of a 2-year-old is going to take one look at me and think it's years since you've chased a 2-year-old around and had a stand-up argument with them. Not necessarily, it's not that they don't believe, but it's more convincing from their peers. I think that's a really good solution.
Yeah, we are seeing, we're not seeing a huge impact. Obviously, it's very early days, but we are seeing, I mean, just from sending the letter out about the volunteers group, all I've done is open up a coffee mug and inviting them along. We are a large school, we've got 560 so pupils, but at the minute, I've got 25 replies back. 2 years ago when we did it, we had 3. So I just went like that to my head teacher.
Build on it.
And I just went, here we go. You know, and that's because of the word has come through other parents.
Yeah. That's
fingers
great.
crossed.
Which area are you in, Amanda?
I'm in Sheffield.
Okay, so Sheffield Family Learning FACE actually holds 50 things.
Yes,
so
we do,
there's that connection there as well. And I think we've got a history of working with volunteers. So great work there. Absolutely marvellous. Splendid.
Just an idea.
Thank you for sharing that. It's really important that we share the good bits as well as the challenges. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Shall we go on to the next slide, Becca? Thank you. I'll do this one, and then if you want to pick it up. The only reason I want to do this one is this is one of my favourite photographs out of all the stock photos. This is a little boy who's at a primary school in Bradford, and they had an event. And whether you can see it clearly, this is a cement tray with the giant bubble mix, the recipe of which is on number 8 bubbles, and a hula hoop. And that little boy is encased in a bubble, which I work with adults all the time talking about 50 things, and nearly always adults will go, I want to go at that. I'm definitely having that at my next party. So we asked users, well, how do you access 50 things? You know, how do you go? So posters, quite a few people. Home learning bags, that was another thing. A bit like story sacks, but supporting parents to use one. So it might have a book in and some resources, some recipes, that type of thing, linked to one of the 50 things activities. I think they're in Peterborough, and I think they've got them in Oxfordshire and Cambridgeshire as well. A number of people use the app. Resources that are made by the setting or the school or the nursery from the website viewer, and via an online journal, so via Tapestry, that sort of thing. Thanks, Becca. So any of you who are from a nursery or a school, thank you, because there are reams of people who hear about 50 things through you. And I think a lot of that is about the relationships that they've got with you, that you are a trusted professional. And if you're offering it and saying this is a good idea, then that's where parents might use that. But very often friends and family are recommending it. Another large swathe is on social media, and another one at the local library or other community space. So children's centres, family hubs, that type of thing. So there's a real range of how we get that information out there. Becca, do you want to pick up the next bit? Because I think that's the research that you did. Wi-Fi might have given up, don't know.
Struggling to unmute.
Oh, sorry.
So yeah, I think this was from Rosie's research, but around what people use 50 things for. Predominantly it's for the activity ideas, but it's also around using it for suggestions of local places to visit, the events listing, to find out a little bit more about my child's development, giving children more experiences, and ideas shared by other families on social media.
If I could chip in on that one about local places to visit, sometimes it's as simple as we know where our local park is, but by going on the app, we could find other parks that were accessible to us and an opportunity to try that. So it wasn't always a completely new place. It was a similar activity, but at a different one. Thanks, Becca.
Okay. So yeah, so this was the bit of research that I did. So again, you know, working with those settings across East Sussex, Peterborough and Wakefield. This wasn't something that we were really expecting, but we popped the question in anyway. And we've been really pleasantly surprised by the result, with 66% of settings saying that 50 things to do before you're 5, you know, having it embedded into their setting has improved practice overall. So it's not just around supporting the home learning environment. It's not just around building those partnerships with parents, but it's had that sort of bigger impact on the whole setting. So again, I'll just leave those there for a moment to read some of the comments. Ooh, going too fast now, just bear with me a second. And I can't remember if Andrea said this right at the beginning, but when we first got the funding to take 50 things to do outside of St Edmunds. It was a funded project around promoting oracy. And so sort of supporting speech and language development, it has always been really, you know, a core part of you know, our ethos. And you know, I'm sure you will absolutely agree with us when we say when children do fun and exciting things, they want to talk about it. And so that's, you know, one of our core principles. And we're really great again to see that 62% of settings have seen increased interaction, not between the children and the practitioners, not between the parents and the practitioners, but between the parents and the children. You know, it's often just a small window when the parents are dropping the children off or collecting them, but they've noticed a difference in the way that their parents are communicating with the children. You know, and that's about, you know, the children wanting to come in and tell the setting what they've been up to around 50 things, but the parents also wanting to do that. So having that conversation with the child to say, oh, go and tell them what we've been doing, and promoting that. And sitting alongside that is sort of, you know, the questions that we've asked parents in the past, and 86% of parents said that the activities provide opportunities to communicate with their child. So it's that thing, you do something exciting and you communicate with each other. And 64% feel that they communicate more purposefully with their children when they're playing. So that's, you know, really good sort of feedback around how it is supporting children's speech and language. We've talked about COVID and post-COVID and the impact that that's had on families and practitioners. You know, and mental health and family well-being is really, really important to all of us. And, you know, it's very hard for parents to support their children's well-being if they're not in a great place themselves. And we are also at Bradford Birth to 19 massive advocates of the importance of play, and we know that playing makes people feel happier. There's lots of science around that, the impact of playing on your mood and how that helps you feel better. So we were really pleased to say that to see that 82% of settings felt that the 50 Things to Do Before You're 5 promoted playfulness in their children and families, and that 76% of settings said that their families are enjoying using 50 things. Those are really important things, and that's what matters more than anything, because without that sort of positive state of well-being, children aren't going to learn anything else as well. So, you know, underpinning everything is how we feel and how we are ready to learn other things.
Becca, and again, I'll just record.
I think we are. I think I did unpause the recording, didn't I?
Doesn't sound. Oh, no, it does. Beg your pardon.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Lovely. Yeah. Well done.
So yeah, I'll just leave those there for a moment. You know, this is how settings feel that they know that it promotes playfulness and that families are enjoying it. And as Andrea said right at the beginning of this presentation, you know, we don't do things to please Ofsted. You know, that's not what should be, you know, underpinning any provision. But on the other hand, it's always nice when Ofsted do notice the work that we're doing and make positive comments. We believe that Ofsted aren't supposed to mention any particular project by name in their reports, and you will all be acutely aware how small reports are these days as well. So we're not going to report them because we like to see our name here, and we've recently been given some more examples as well. But you know, here's a few examples here of where Ofsted have actually commented on our work in reports. And we also have a lot of anecdotal evidence from other settings. You know, there's a couple of childminders in Oldham, there's a setting in Cambridge who have said that they absolutely felt that having 50 things to do in their setting and be able to talk to the offset inspector enabled them to become outstanding. So that's fantastic work to hear. So, you know, we've talked a lot about the different ways that you encourage your parents to get involved. So there's just a bit of a summary of how 50 things can be used in different settings. It can be a home learning resource. It can be integrated into your own planning. And we've seen that happen quite a lot. So, you know, they have settings might have an activity of the week or an activity of the month, and integrate those into their own planning, and then also extend that by encouraging parents to do a home learning activity along the same topic. It can be used to share local activities for families. Oh, sorry, I've just got somebody in the waiting room. We've talked a lot about this evening about stay and play sessions and using 50 things as the basis for their stay and play sessions, and that's the same whether it's in family hubs or within your school or nursery if you have those stay and play settings. And organising trips with families. So I know in our nursery they have done trips around the wheels on the bus, and they've invited the parents and the children to come with the staff and go on the bus down to the centre of Bradford, and then go and have a play in the fountains, which is our number 44. And so it's organising those trips. And there's a case study on our website that includes a little bit from a nursery in East Sussex who organised trips with their families when they first implemented 50 things, and it was a way of sort of, you know, getting the families together. And on the back of those trips, the families started organising trips with each other to do them, so they didn't need the practitioners anymore to facilitate those trips. And so it's enabled that sort of cohesion amongst families and building relationships, as well as sort of engaging out in the local area and increasing that cultural capital that we hear so much about. And then a handful of examples of how other settings have used it. For those of you who are here from Wakefield tonight, I'm assuming that you will all be familiar with Buddy Bear down in the corner here. So if you are a setting in Wakefield and you haven't heard of Buddy Bear, do get in touch with Angie and the local team there, Angie and Laura, who you can find through your local site and find out more about Buddy Bear. So Wakefield have champion settings, so you can apply to be a champion setting where you get Buddy Bear, and Buddy Bear is encouraging the families to go out and do the 50 things activities, and sharing that back. So you can see there that Buddy Bear has been doing bedtime stories, and he's got his pajamas on, but he's also had a bit of a trip to the seaside as well. There's an example of a display board in a setting there, which has got the hashtags that have been focused on in the nursery. So there's 26, Splish Splash Splosh, and number 20, mini artists. And parents can be encouraged to bring their own photos from home around that as well. And the way that they've developed that notice board is the photographs are in slips that can be change quite regularly, and the hashtag number and the Splish Splash Splosh is just laminated paper, so it works as a whiteboard, so you don't have to kind of redo the whole board regularly, but you can refresh it and update it on a regular basis. We've talked a lot this evening about sharing things on the apps that you use already within the setting, whether that's Family, Tapestry, Dojo, other apps do exist. But also we've got an example here of sharing it on social media. So it's, I don't know how well you can see it, but the children were gardening in the nursery, and there's the little hashtag number in the corner there. So it's promoting that, that this is what we've done in the nursery, and why don't you do it at home as well. For those of you that are in Birmingham, I believe you get a newsletter every Friday from the 50 Things team with a hashtag of the week on there. And so a lot of settings use those to promote weekend activity with the children. And in Bradford and possibly across the whole of West Yorkshire, we're pinching that idea from October, and we will also be sending a newsletter to earlier settings with that hashtag of the week. And then we talked about the printable resources that are available, and we are constantly sort of looking at ways to improve and increase those printable resources around. So yeah. So we had a little bit of a look earlier at the regional website. I'm just going to stop sharing and reshare my screen and take you to our national website and just talk you through that for a moment. Okay, so on our national website, this is the landing page. And so we have a space for families. If you click on that, what that will actually do is show you a map of where 50 Things is currently available. They can click on there and it will take them through to their local site. But this page here is for professionals, which is all for you guys. And we are currently, this is a relatively new website, and we are, oh, it's still translated. Oh no. Oh, maybe I can do it on here.
Left a note, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so on this page there are then sub pages. So we've got practitioners and teachers working with the EYFS, practitioners in family centres, cultural venues, and practitioners working in health. And like I say, it's in progress at the moment, but if we click on the practitioners working in the EYFS, which many of you are, you will see that we've got some video resources. So the first video is some interviews with practitioners and childminders and how they're using it. We've got a case study in East Sussex, which is the one where I was making reference about how it's enabled them for families to kind of work together without practitioners. We've got a guide which many of you may have received from your local area lead, but this is downloadable. You can click on here and it's about why you should use it in your setting, how it links with the EYFS, how it supports cultural capital. And then we've got a little impact study there, which has got some of the data that we shared tonight, but some a few little case studies on top of that. We have a poster for families, which has the QR code, which will take them to the national site, to the download space, and a flyer for families and a sticker template as well. They do currently have Bradford images on. In some local areas, we've already created one that's localized. The content and the QR code can be used anywhere in the country. If you're happy to just print those, it might say Bradford, then please feel free to use them. If you would like them localized in your area, again, get in touch with your local team and they will then get in touch with our marketing team. It's not a massive job for us to save that image with a different home screen there. We have made them for Hounslow and Leeds already. If I just go back here, so a if I have a look on the cultural venues bit, just so you've got an idea. Here, again, we've got how you can use 50 things to do in museums, or how you can use it in libraries. And there's a guide there about similar to the early years one, but about using it in museums and galleries, and the Kids in Museums manifesto. And we are, like I say, sadly, we haven't got anything on the health section yet. That's our priority for this term, to get some content up there. And the same with the family centres. We're currently sort of finishing off the guide for using 50 things in family centres. So they will be there soon. So do keep coming back to this space. We will be adding more and more resources continually.
Becca, can I ask, is it family centres or family hubs?
Well, it's a bit of both. So family hubs are in the areas where they were funded as part of the Start for Life. But some areas have their family. I mean, we could put family centres / hubs, but yeah.
I think it might be worthwhile.
Yeah. Okay, so I will go back to the presentation. Ooh, stop sharing. Okay, so I'm really conscious of time. I think because it's been a bigger group than we've done in the past. Obviously that feedback takes longer. So if people do need to head off, please don't feel like you're being rude. We understand that. There's literally only a couple more slides just to kind of clarify your next steps. Very briefly, I will just let people who are in West Yorkshire know that coming really, really soon is our Friends of 50 Things, which will be a kind of accreditation scheme. We are working across Wakefield as well, and Wakefield would like that Friends of 50 Things to roll out across Wakefield in conjunction with Buddy Bear as well. So there will be a little, this is Ludic the monkey, who is going to be available to go into settings with a little backpack, and there'll be resources in there to support your home learning. Like I say, watch this space, and if you are in West Yorkshire, please come to the Cedar Court Hotel on the 12th of October for the Early Years Stronger Practice Hub West and South Yorkshire conference, where we will be officially launching our Friends of 50 Things, and every attendee will get a Ludic and the pack associated with that. So friends in West Yorkshire, please watch this space. Because people in West Yorkshire is quite a small proportion of this webinar, I won't talk any more about that. But okay, Andrea, do you want to go on to the action planning?
I think when you get a copy of the slides, unless you want to take a photograph of the screen or a screen grab, I think you need to consider, what is it that you want to do? What do you want to achieve? Recognise and think about whose support you will need, either within or external to your organisation. Decide whether you need a budget. And I would be thinking, is it just refreshments that I need? Or do I want to think about printing out some of those printable resources or something else? Do I want to develop 50 things sacks? What resources are you going to need? And by that, I'm also thinking about whether you need the resource of colleagues to be part of that. I know in one school, the request went round that every member of staff created a 50 things bag. So they now have all 50 things in a bag that can be loaned to parents. I know it's very impressive, isn't it, Amanda? Think about how you're going to promote it. We've had a couple of ideas on the call tonight about having launch events where parents get the opportunity to try some of these. We've had all sorts of suggestions around bears and soft toys. Think about how you're going to promote that. Don't just put it in your newsletter and expect that it will thrive. And also think about how you're going to measure success. But in terms of success, be kind to yourself. I think we've heard lots of examples this afternoon how progress is often incremental, and you count those small successes as part of the bigger picture. Okay, we've had a question about what were the dates of the Cedar Court event, Becca?
So I've just put it in there.
12th of October.
12th of October. We will, in the email that we send with the evaluation form and with the PDF version of these slides, we'll put a reminder about that conference date in as well. So hopefully we will get that out tomorrow, but I will give you a heads up. Our marketing team have got quite an exciting day out and about, taking photographs. We've set up an event for families to come and play, but we can take photographs. So it might be Monday, and the recording might be a few days later that you get a copy of that, but everything will reach you by Tuesday next week at the latest. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming tonight, for giving up your time at the end of a very busy day, and for some of you still trying to work whilst being in the webinar. We really do appreciate it, and we hope that you've found it useful. I've lost the thing that allows me to move to the next slide, but the next slide literally just says any questions. So if people have got questions, either drop them in the chat, or Andrea and I will stay on for a few minutes. Or if you have a question in a week, 3 weeks, a month's time, drop us a line. We love to chat. Can I just say, if it's in more than a week's time, though, it will just be me, because the wonderful Andrea is retiring a week tomorrow. And it'll be so sad without her, but we will still be available.
And yes, I am that old. Yeah, can I echo thank you for your active participation this afternoon. It's really useful. We learn something every time we do this.
Got 3 pages of notes from your comments that will impact our work going forward, so thank you.